Hello, this is Jenny Fern, and today I am sharing a video that is about harvesting some wild plums and making some fruit scrap vinegar. So here you can see I've got this beautiful little accidental or natural guild here with a gigantic oak tree and some plum trees, including this beautiful one right here. They're so cute. They are tart. They are wild plums, but they're such a pretty color. I also picked up a piece of cactus that was just kind of rogue and loose. I was in an area that is basically between some housing and the freeway. It's not particularly wild. And it's also mostly just like a bunch of dry grass, but there's a couple of areas where they can't mow. And that's where we get some trees and fun things like that. So I recently purchased a cherry pitter, which would have been so helpful for this task, which I was trying to remove. I don't know what I was thinking I was going to do with these tiny little pieces of plum. Some of them I end up using for the vinegar because, they're not super useful. And I have frozen some of them, so maybe I will make a jam in winter or something. I don't know. But the cherry pitter would have been really helpful, especially because I got it because I knew that the wild plum that's behind my fence was going to be coming into season soon. And it turns out that those plums are just a little bit, at least most of them are a little bit too big to actually fit. And so you have to kind of smush them in there. So anyway, what I'm doing with these is making fruit scrap vinegar, which I have a video all about that. It is from last year when I did a video every day in August. I'm doing a video every day in July this year. So if you're interested in following along with that, subscribe. So you can see I added some brown sugar to these fruit scraps. I included the pits, and I also scoop in some of the more fleshy bits. So there's definitely some fruit flesh on here, and then I added even some more. The sugar is optional, but it can kind of kickstart things a little bit. What we're doing basically is a fermentation process that goes all the way through to making vinegar. So you get some little critters that produce, I think, acetic acid, and that's how you can get your own vinegar. But they take sugars, or it starts with sugars basically, and so that's why we're using fruit scraps and some water. And yeah, again, the sugar is to kickstart things a little bit. I think last year I used less sugar, and it worked out just fine. This batch also worked out just fine. In last year's video, I show stirring the vinegar every day, which is kind of fun because it goes through a very interesting process. You can see in this batch, I decided just to squeeze the fruit and plop it right in there. I think this was probably a better idea and more efficient with my time. We basically just want to get the fruit exposed and kind of get things moving along, which is why we're popping them open. So you may wonder if it's worth making your own vinegar. I think it's really fun, and you won't have to buy it in the store again if you don't want to. And you can do it with all sorts of fruit. So this year was the first year I tried it with apricots. And so I'll show you some of the results of that in this video. But we have this cute little orangey yellow wild plum, and then we have the wild plums that are behind my house that we can also compare. So I think this jar is a couple of days advanced compared to the one that I just set up. And so you can see it's deepened in color. Excuse me. Things are kind of degrading. You get different progression. So you can see I'm doing a sniff test, seeing how things smell. You will get some bubbling a few days in. Things will get, fermenty, and then eventually things will settle down into a sour liquid, and that's the point that that you can start progressing. So this is apricots. You can start progressing with actually taking the fruit out, and this year last year I was saying, hey, I thought I had this pillowcase and I couldn't find it. So I'm actually using that pillowcase in this video. And I'm also using one of the recommendations that I had from the previous time that I did this, of using the coffee filters that I use on top of the jars as like a removable filter layer, because you do get a lot of fruit debris on the surface of your fabric or your cheesecloth or whatever. And so I was going to use that because you can peel it off and then put it in your compost. So that's what I did, because I'm likely just to compost them anyway, because they're not like super suitable for multiple uses on these jars. So you can also use other types of jars and just maybe use rubber bands with the coffee filter. Coffee filter's there so you don't get like bugs and weird stuff going in, like dust going into your vinegar, but you can use your judgment, figure out what works for you. I will say this was about a week of waiting. We've had very high temperatures, so our house has probably been like 80 degrees, and so I think the progress of this whole fermentation process went pretty quickly. And you can see I have all the seeds or the pits in this cloth. You can also see them in the background of this shot. I'm going to try to plant these out, these little wild plum pits, and see what cute varieties we get coming out of there. Maybe there will be something really sweet and delicious, but I don't I don't have that much room, so I might have to try to find some natural place to plant these out. I also got some funnels recently, which I needed to get the funnels in order to make this process much easier. So we're moving on up in terms of, having kitchen gear that's helpful for me. So this is some apricot. It's a lot clearer, or I guess maybe it's just not as dark. It doesn't have that dark color compared to the plum vinegar, which has a little bit of a more brown tinge. The apricot one looks a little bit more cloudy, a little bit, I don't know, it just kind of looks like an apricot, to be honest. So yeah, the process is a little bit time consuming. Set aside, I don't know, a couple hours maybe, especially if, like me, you made a bunch of jars at once of all of these fruit scraps just sitting on your counter for a while. Then you might want to set aside some time to make sure that they get into jars, because if you forget about them, they might get gross. I did that last year with some grapes that I was turning into vinegar. We'll try it again this year. I honestly thinking of trying to make wine this year. But that'll be a first for me. This is my second year making vinegar, and it's just so easy. It's so easy to make your own vinegar. I really suggest that you try, and you just have to give it a sniff, and if it smells right, give it a little tiny taste, And I I cut out the bits where I taste this because it's sour. And it was shocking to me how sour it was. So I, twist up my face into, a little bit of a grimace. But it doesn't taste bad. It tastes pretty good. It just is vinegar. I used some of the apricot vinegar for dressing, salad dressing yesterday. That was great. And I'm reusing these old, large wine bottles, which have these fun graphics on them just because I think they're pretty. So this one's going to be apricot. Again, you can see it's like a lighter, kind of foggier color. Like a nice yellow. And then you can see this wild plum vinegar it looks almost like bone broth. It's got a deeper, clearer color. And it doesn't quite smell as good as the apricots because the apricot one smells like apricots. Anyway, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thank you for watching.